Of news around Social Security, Medicare for all kinds of cool stuff going on, and some kind of scary stuff as well. Alex Lawson is on the line with us, the executive director of SocialSecurityWorks.org or StrengthenSocialSecurity.org. His Twitter handle, ALaw202 or SSWorks. And Alex, welcome back to the program. Are there any other websites you want to mention here as part of your introduction?
I think that was enough, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Great. It's good work you're doing. It's really good work you're doing. I'm constantly sending people to your website. So, number one, we've got the Republican Party working as hard as they can, at least the Republicans in the House of Representatives, to try to crash our economy via this device of the debt ceiling. And they have done this before. We've actually had government shutdowns. We've never had a default, but we've had government shutdowns. What has been the consequence for Social Security in the past, and what might we expect this time as we get closer and closer to the possibility of at least a freeze before a default?
Yeah, it's really uncharted territory. So a government shutdown and defaulting on our obligations are like orders of magnitude different. If the U.S. were to ever not pay one of its bills, which is what's being talked about. It's not about spending, it's about paying bills that we've already spent or that we owe our own people, like Social Security. Social Security, the U.S. people are the largest debt holder of U.S. Treasury bonds. Before any of the banks or other countries or anything, Americans own U.S. Treasury bonds. And that's because the U.S. government pays its bills and always has more than enough money to pay its bills. But the Republicans in the House are using this absolutely asinine construction of the debt ceiling, which is a button that was built by legislation. And if you don't push it, the world economy blows up. And you're like, well, we should get rid of the button, right? Obviously. But they're threatening default. And what the Secretary of Treasury, Secretary Yellen says is Social Security checks will not get sent out because the U.S. can't pick and choose which debts it pays. So if it's not allowed by the Republicans to pay its obligations, people who rely on their Social Security checks in the latter part of June, July, they might not get their checks, Tom. And that's not something that people can live without in many cases. And then what the Republicans are holding our Social Security, our veterans benefits, the whole world economy hostage to do are devastating cuts to Social Security. 22% cut to Social Security Administration. The administration is stretched way too thin as it is, as you and your listeners know. If you try to get an appointment with Social Security right now, it's too hard now. We need to be increasing spending. We need to be opening offices. 10,000 baby boomers are retiring each month, and the Republicans propose to cut the administration's budget, the Social Security Administration's budget, by almost a quarter. I mean, you tell me, Tom, do you think that they could actually even continue to operate in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I think what we're seeing here, Alex, is that they would love to have the Social Security Administration. I mean, they did this with the IRS. They did this with the EPA. Lay off as many people as you can. The EPA doesn't directly interface with consumers, but the IRS does. You lay off as many people as you can, and then when people try to reach out to those agencies, they have a very, very bad experience. They're on hold for hours. It takes days to get an answer. In some cases, weeks or months to get an answer to even simple questions. And at that point, they're like, screw this. Yes, privatize Social Security. Give it all to Jamie Dimon and let him run it out of J.P. Morgan. It'll work better that way. I mean, that's what the Republicans are trying to do, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's either destroy it along with the world economy, right, through the front door, or cut all of its funding, destroy it through these death by 1,000 cuts. Although a 22% cut is just one killing blow, because nothing could survive losing, 22 cents out of every dollar that's just used right now to keep all the offices going and everybody working. I mean, it's not realistic. So the annoying thing to me, Tom, is that we have to treat these Republicans, as serious, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in any logical world, they'd be laughed out of the room. We'd be like, push the button and then dismantle the button and get these people who were willing to crash the world economy so that they could starve seniors and people with disabilities, get rid of them. But we do know that there's these huge propaganda channels that the right wing can use to interface directly with their people and spin them an entirely separate story about what's going on, making them the heroes, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the corporate media who, they actually hate the idea of the debt ceiling of default because it's one of the few times where the rich would actually suffer as well. Not as much as poorer people, obviously, but bondholders would get hit with the default. So it is that rare alignment where you might see Jamie Dimon even saying, "Hey, don't breach
there is a
the
caveat
debt ceiling."
to that. There is a caveat to that, and that is that some of the largest fortunes in America were made during the Great Depression. That
Totally.
Whenever, and if you look at the major recessions that we have had over the years, during every one of them, the two that are most conspicuous, that are easily fact-checked, are the Bush crash of 2007, 2008, and the COVID crash of 2020. During those collapses of the stock market, the billionaires in America, just specifically the billionaire class, increase their wealth more rapidly than at any other time because they're buying opportunities. The stock market drops 30%. If you've got piles and piles of cash in your money bin, you just go in and buy up stocks. And as soon as the market recovers, you're just insanely richer than you were before. So,
absolutely, Tom.
There is a perverse incentive here.
That's completely correct. But I think that they don't want to breach the debt ceiling because default would mean a disaster.
I think the CEOs don't want to breach the debt ceiling. I think that the billionaires who are making their living as stock speculators and whatnot are giddy about it.
Well, they're giddy about recession. They like it when working people lose their jobs.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They root every day for working people to lose their job.
Yeah.
And if they can nudge the U.S. into recession, which again, this, Tom, that's what this is all about. The Republicans don't care about anything other than hurting the economy so that they can win the presidency next year, right?
That's
they
correct.
did the exact same thing to Obama, and it worked. It didn't work. They did not beat Obama, but they were able to negotiate these cuts in and wreck the economy. Imagine where the economy would have been if there weren't the sequester, right? These made up words that just meant they were robbing the people. Like public employees aren't actually an engine, a driver of our economy. And they're like, yeah, just pay them less, right? Imagine how much harm they did the last age of austerity. And that's what we cannot allow to happen this time. Because you're right. The billionaires root for recession every morning with their tea and crumpets. I don't know what they eat. It's probably not tea and crumpets anymore. But that they do eat what they feast on is wage earners losing their jobs.
Yeah, they,
right?
they eat the poor, metaphorically.
That's exactly right.
So, all right, so there's that, but that's kind of the bad news side of this thing. With the last 2 minutes or so we have here, I'd like to talk about the good news side of this thing. Medicare for All has been revived in this congressional session. Obviously, it's not going to pass as long as Republicans control the House, but you have to do this day by day or year by year. You have to, to build consensus around it. And this time, there's a lot of sponsors on this legislation that used to just be, John Conyers in his holding hearings in his little, literally a closet in the basement of the Capitol building.
Yeah, it's, so I also, really importantly, there's this understanding within this huge community of Americans who are like, we need guaranteed health care for everyone. That also means we cannot allow the insurers to destroy Medicare before we improve it and expand it.
With Medicare Advantage. Yep.
Exactly. And so that fight is very real right now. And I would see the introduction of Medicare for All as this is the goal long term, but also a really important, a battle right now in this fight with insurers who just crossed 50%. So 50% of Medicare eligible seniors, people in this country, now receive their care from private insurers through this so-called Medicare Advantage, which, as you know, Tom, has nothing to do with Medicare.
No, it's a scam.
It's a scam. And we're seeing some momentum back. It's really hopeful right now that we're going to see, some momentum. And basically, there's been an understanding that Medicare Advantage isn't just one thing. We know that the whole setup was a scam by Republicans, but everyone now can see that there are plans in there that are killing people. They wrongfully delay and deny care at such an insane level that you cannot put it any other way than they are making money off of killing people. And there's an awareness that at least that we have to eliminate. And then what we want to do is make sure that, they can't even, right now we overpay them and they underdeliver. We don't want to do either of those, right? And the solution is to make sure that traditional Medicare, that we add vision, hearing, dental, long-term care, and out-of-pocket cap, and expand it to everyone in this country. That's what Medicare for All is all about.
Yeah, and the champions for it, I know it's Bernie Sanders in the Senate, and in the House.
Pramila Jayapal in the House.
Yep, and don't they have more than 100 sponsors this time around? Yeah,
and so Pramila Jayapal, Debbie Dingell. Sorry for cutting you off, Tom. I got excited. I love Medicare for All.
Good.
The introduction was there were so many people there you couldn't even list all the names. So this is core. This is in the mainstream of Democratic policies. Medicare for All is just. It is understood as the guiding light that we're pushing towards.
Right.
So you had all the senators back on. We need to continue to make gains in the Senate. And then in the House, you saw incredible numbers. And I will say also, this was the first time in a bunch of years that we've had them done at the same time.
There you go. So reach out to your politicians and say Medicare for All. Alex Lawson.